Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to go ahead and get started with our luncheon. So we will begin in prayer. So Bryce Shoemate has agreed to start us off in prayer. If everyone would stand. Sorry about that.
Go back again, please. Father, as we come to this season of Thanksgiving, really we should always be thankful no matter what that season is. But truly we remember as we have come through the harvest, as we come through this season of Thanksgiving, we are truly thankful. Not only for our businesses that are represented here, but truly for our community. And you have blessed our community so much and helped us in so many ways to continue to thrive. And we thank you for that, Lord. We ask that you guide us, because all of us stray. We ask that you guide us and keep us on track and lead us to the ways that you need us to be and to be successful as we continue on in our community. Thank you for this food that you've allowed to be provided for us today. And we ask that you continue to nourish our bodies with it and lead us as we leave this place. And it's in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. And if you'll remain standing, Gene Gudenkoff is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thanks to everyone for braving the weather today. We didn't know what kind of a crowd we would have. With the school closing, you never know what's going to happen. So thanks to everyone for being here today. At this time, I would like to ask, we're still in the season of Veterans Day. So at this time, if you are a veteran, I would ask that you please stand. Thank you all very much for your service. I just felt like we were still in that season and we did not want to let that go unnoticed. At this time, I'd like to welcome all of our dignitaries, and I noticed we have Judge Harry Berry in the room, so if you could just give us a little wave. I saw Hardin County's Deputy Judge Executive Daniel London in the room. We have Mayor Duval with us today. And Councilwoman Barbara Baker. And who else? We have Jeff Cross, Chief of Police. And we have our Chief of the Fire Department with us today. Thank you very much. Brian just joined us, so we're glad to have you here with us. Thank you. General Iacocca's with us today, sitting in the very back corner. Thanks, Fran, for keeping me straight. Okay, I'd like to start off by seeing if we have any new businesses. If you're a new business or if this is your first time attending our luncheon, if you could stand up and give us just a very brief information about you and your business. So we'll start on this side of the room, on the outside. If you are a first-time visitor, please stand up and tell us a little bit about yourself. We also have Doug Goodman in the room with us today, Magistrate Doug Goodman. Okay, going back to first-time visitors, do we have anybody at this table? No? Then we'll move to the center table. Any visitors?
I'm Althea. I work with Jessica about the Beyond Hair and Nails here in Radcliff. We're a full-service salon.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for joining us. And what about the last table? Anyone else? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Well, we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Barry, I'm going to call you on up if you want to introduce our speakers for today. Let me move my stuff.
Bryce Shoemate. I've been with a lot of opening prayers before, but never one that had the NFL sports theme in the background going. Do the prayer right now. That was great. Good stuff. You're it from now on. Started my small business journey in the late 80s. And a couple of friends said, you probably need an accountant. I hadn't really thought about that much, and they said, use ours. And this has been a long time ago, and he's still on my team as my CPA. And what did he say to me? He said, you're going to need a lawyer to help you navigate the corporation stuff that you've got to do. And I said, well, that probably sounds like a good idea. And he's still my lawyer to this day for those matters. And I talked to Fran, and I asked Fran about insurance matters, and she said, Agnes Yates is somebody really good to talk to. And I said, well, I posted that on Facebook, and next thing I know, 3 or 4 people started talking about how wonderful Agnes was. And I thought, well, I probably picked the right person. And then my counterpart in E-Town for Subway for several years has talked very, very highly about Chris Carter at Stiles & Carter. And so I gave him a call. And he said, you don't want me to get up and speak, but there is somebody with us that you do want to get up there, and that's Carrie Gray, CPA. And I said, well, Chris, if you say that's what we need, then that's what we need. And of course, you should see a theme going here. And then I talked to Carrie, and we were talking about how that their team has doing some new things that you'll probably talk about with more experts adding on. And we're talking about legal matters and who might I get. And of course, she says, you need Stephanie Livers to come. And so you see where all this is going. We're building teams. We're recommending people, we're talking to people, and we're building teams. And so that's really the theme of today. So we're gonna let Agnes come up first and talk to us. And come on up, Agnes.
Thank all of you. This is the first time I've spoke before a group. I'm used to speaking to people across a desk. So I'm going to pretend you're all across my desk, so I won't get nervous. I've been in insurance business for 46 years, and 43 of those years I have been with North Hardin Insurance, and I'm a commercial lines manager there. So we'll get started here. What insurance does your business really need to protect you from liability claims and to cover your investment of your property? And if you have employees, then you need to cover them if they're injured on the job. Today, there are many circumstances and situations that lie outside your control as a business owner. This is the reason to buy insurance. The process of buying insurance shouldn't be stressful. Your agent will be your guide to help make the experience streamlined and straightforward. When starting a new business, a business person is best served by an independent agent who writes for multiple companies. The agent can shop with their A-rated companies to find the best policy to fit their client's needs. Insurance companies use class codes for rating liability, property, commercial auto, and workman's comp. In order to assign the correct class code and the proper rating, the agent will have many questions, known as underwriting the risk. Some folks may think we agents work for the companies. We actually work for our clients. We understand the business owner's side, and we know what the companies are looking for. We know the client is looking for the best coverage at a competitive price. The questions we start with will be the type of business entity, such as sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, nonprofit, the business name as it's filed with the Secretary of State, so we have the exact name of the business, and we do check that. I have that a shortcut on my screen. The business name exactly is very important, so we don't have to do an endorsement when the policy comes in. Most businesses have applied already for a federal tax ID number. Some operate under their Social Security numbers, and that are usually small proprietors, and if they're a part-time, they don't even bother to apply for a federal tax ID number. They work with their Social Security number. Companies give the best rates to business owners that have at least 3 years in experience in their field and have a good credit score. If you give you an idea on rating general liability, businesses have different exposures that we'll use for rating purposes, payroll, sales, or square feet. Estimates used on a startup business, and there are estimates because the owner usually has not the exact idea of what he's going to have starting the business and getting off the ground. At the end of the policy term, that's when we have an audit. And probably a lot of you are working with your insurance, you know all about audits. And they're not as dreaded as they can, but you think they are. The policy is using an estimated exposure. So in order to get the exact insurance premium, you'll need an audit to find out the actual amounts. And then at the end of that term, and end of the audit, you'll get an invoice from the company. Maybe you might be surprised. It might be a credit because usually you estimate high. And so the best is to get the credit back. Sometimes businesses will take on another type of work, and that will be entered into the audit, and it could be an additional premium in that way. The agents also we may suggest bonds that you might need. There's other coverages like cyber liability, equipment breakdown, spoilage of goods, contractors' equipment, and special rates for itemized items, and it goes on and on. And we'll go on to property insurance. Our agency always inspects property when we write it or quote it. So we'll have an idea what the building looks like, what around the building, the maintenance, safety, housekeeping. Property insurance uses several factors to determine the rate, like the type of building it is, the location, the age, the square feet, distance to the fire station and the fire hydrant, whether you have alarms, whether you're sprinklered, occupancy, hours, and even your neighbors. I mean, you might have a guy next door that has a junk pile, junkyard, and that might make a difference of whether our companies would even be interested in that. If you're insuring just business personal property, we would probably look at that building as well just to see what kind of housekeeping is there. You can buy replacement cost on property, and we recommend that. But if you have an older building, we would probably write actual cash value, which is more like a market value, and that might be better for that type of building. If equipment is attached to the building, then it's considered building. The building rates are lower than contents rates, personal property rates, so if there's any way you can attach it to the building, that'll make it building. Of course, you have to make sure your building's insured to the proper amount. And one thing about business personal property, if you want theft coverage, you have to have an alarm system. There's various deductibles that you can choose to adjust your rates with. They range from $250 to $5,000 deductible. But you want to be sure to take a deductible that's something that you can afford if you have a claim, because you don't want to be left high and dry. Now we're going to go on to the wonderful world of workman's comp. The NCCI, which stands for the National Council on Compensation Insurance, they assign thousands of class codes, and those are found in the Scopes manual. And we agents like to call that the NCCI Bible. They have the final say on the classification that's going to be used for employees of that particular job description. There are several class codes that could apply. You may have more than one class code, depending on the type of business that you have. And the rating exposure is always payroll. That is usually an estimated amount to start with. We don't need the names and social security numbers of the employees until audit time. At that time, the auditor will need some type of filed tax document that shows the payrolls. And most of the time, the audit company will accept a UI-3 form, which is a Kentucky unemployment tax form, because it gives the names and social security numbers and all of the employees. And it happens sometimes if the company is not knowing about another line of business they took on or another type of work, they'll pick that up on the audit too and assign a class code to it. And then they will not tell us agents usually, and then they'll wonder why they got an audit bill. I have worked on many, many audits because sometimes the auditor will not speak to the right person. Sometimes they give them the auditor will try to assign a code when he thinks it's best. Sometimes they'll pick up some people under a different class code that don't need to be there. They'll pick up the officer's payroll, and I'll get into that. That is probably very interesting to people who are incorporated. A lot of the officers of the corporation will reject workman's comp on a form called a Form 4, which is filed with the Department of Insurance. And it has to be signed and notarized and on file at the time that they want to reject the payroll. And because if a payroll is picked up for an officer, the NCCI assigns a minimum payroll for an officer. And at this time, at this date and time, it's $43,000 a year, whether you make that or not, or whether you show you draw that or not. So if it's a high-rated business, then you're going to get a big shock for insuring the officer. Commercial auto, that's a different animal. It's rated on year, make, radius, how the vehicles are used. You can get various deductibles to adjust your premium on your physical damage, and I won't go any further into that. If a client needs all of the above, we can usually package their coverage, unless for some reason one of the lines of coverage doesn't qualify for that company. In that case, we have other companies in which to place that line. A good agent will always shop with at least 2 or 3 carriers for the best coverage and price. And most companies have payment plans. And if they don't, then we have a premium finance company that takes care of that too. I know I've not come close to giving you all the scoop on business insurance, and with limited time, there's many things I've left out. We agents find ourselves being a mentor to new business. Giving people advice and tips on their operations, and you'd be surprised how many new businesses are so clueless. We find the business person knows the business they operate, they know the work, they're clueless about taxes, legal matters, and insurance. And that's where they need to be proactive and wise to consult others and learn what they can, all they can about the aspects of running a successful business. Thank you.
Okay, I've been fighting a chest cold, so I'm praying that my voice makes it the time frame I'm supposed to speak. I wasn't really for sure about our audience base, if we had new businesses or business owners that have been operating their business for several years. And when Barry came to me, he said, tell us what you want your clients to know. And I would give you loads of information depending on what stage in your business you are. So I've compiled a few things that I think are important that would help you communicate with your accountant to help you with your business. So we'll start out with some of the smaller items. Of course, with the Tax Acts and Job Act, or the Tax Cuts and Job Act, that has changed some of our deductions that our businesses are able to utilize to offset their income. And the key here is communication, same with a marriage, right? So the more you're on the same page with your accountant, potentially the better position you're going to be at a tax standpoint for your business. So not all deductions are created equal. And one of the things that changed is the meals and entertainment. Used to be that businesses would receive some deduction for entertainment expenses within their business. But with the new tax code, the entertainment part was cut out. Okay, no longer a tax deduction. Now, obviously, you can make a business expenditure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a tax benefit for that expense. Now, under meals, you all might not be aware of this, but if you spend $1,000 on business meals, the tax benefit that you're going to receive is only a 50% deduction. So you only get a $500 deduction on your tax return. But what many may not realize is that there are some meals that you're able to deduct at 100%. So when my client brings me their breakdown of their expenses at the end of the year and they just have meals, I don't know if it's 50% or 100%, right? So what we have our clients do is we'll have meals fully deductible, meals 50% deductible. So you classify this at your level, at least try to segregate that out so that we can get you more of a deduction on your tax return. So meals that are 100% deductible, you think about holiday parties for your employees, picnics, or anywhere the meal is available to the public. So that's the general breakdown of what's 100% deductible. For meals, also when it comes to entertainment, you can think about that too. A lot of times we'll see the holiday party is under entertainment, but we don't want to classify as entertainment. We want to pull that out as a fully deductible employee benefit. So just some classification items that'll help you get a greater bang for your buck. Also, another area that we see is charitable donations. Businesses like to make charitable donations, but if it's actually a sponsorship with certain exceptions, that would maybe be more of an advertisement, which is 100% deductible, versus the charitable donation that we have some other tax laws that we have to look at before we can determine the benefit that you get for that. So that's another area that I think classification is important to help communicate better to your accountant what you've actually spent. And because it is year end, we are communicating with our clients now the requirement for sending out 1099s. Now, how many of you all discussed 1099s with your accountant and the need for sending them? So we have a memo here that I can leave out. It's a memo about when your company is required to send a 1099 to an individual. And a lot of times these are companies that you've paid for a service, not purchasing something, but an actual service. In that regard, best practice, and what I don't see companies do, this is a form W-9. This is where you gather information about the person that you, or the company that you're about to pay. So best practice is to get this completed before you issue that first check to that company. Otherwise, it's December and your accountant is calling you and you're chasing down a social security number or EIN for somebody that you're supposed to send a form to. So this is something that I highly recommend people doing, and that makes your life and the accountant's life easier, because then it reduces our time chasing after you to chase after that EIN number or the social security number. In that regard, I also printed out some information from the IRS. Something that comes up a lot is the difference between paying a person as an employee versus a subcontractor. And that designation is important. A lot of times we see if a person is misclassified, it actually comes up on the insurance audits or the unemployment audits, that person gets picked up as either an employee or a contractor, and you have to pay in based on that designation. But it really comes down to the aspects of the relationship. Just because you want to call somebody a subcontractor does not mean that relationship is a subcontracting relationship, and that designation does matter. So I printed out the IRS information on that too. Feel free to take that information if you want. Another best practice that I would instill in my clients is to ensure that you operate with separate accounts, a business account and a personal account. If you want to make a personal expenditure, transfer that money from your business account to your personal account and then make the payment. I also think it's very important for business owners to understand the value of their business. For our small business owners, that entity, that business operation is likely a huge portion of your retirement plan. So it's very important for you to understand the value of that company so that you know what your bucket of retirement looks like. And also to consider what would happen with that company upon your death, especially if it's a family-owned business. And these are conversations that you should have with your accountant, and what makes our job, at least for me, exciting, because that's where we can really help make a difference in the longevity of your company. So I think that is it for my 8 minutes.
Set my timer here. My name's Stephanie, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the legal side of having a business or starting a business. And I'll tell you, I personally went through this past summer. I actually branched out and started my own firm, and Carrie and Stiles and Carter, everything she was telling you is what they were telling me. So hopefully I won't need an attorney to keep me out of trouble. So basically I was taking my own advice, and what I can tell you is everything I've learned over the last 4 to 6 months. It's the hindsight's 20/20 if I had known then what I know now. So when someone calls me and they say I need an appointment to discuss either starting a business or what they need to do, I basically tell them everything that I wished I had known when I was first starting. So the things I thought were the most important when someone first comes in to meet with me is I tell them, do your research. You need to know before you jump into something, your risk versus the reward. You need to know that you are gonna have to spend some time developing a business plan. This isn't something you're gonna prepare overnight. So you need to have the plan in place. And then when you go back and you look at that risk and reward, you're gonna have to define for yourself how much risk you're gonna want to put into that. Then I also say you're gonna need a consulting service, and you're gonna use me or an attorney to handle the legal matters, but you're gonna need to know who's gonna handle your bookkeeping, who's gonna be your accountant, who's gonna be your insurance agent. And then I start saying, if it were me, here's who I might suggest you go talk to unless you've already got somebody you know, because you're going to want to talk to them before you get in too deep, because it's a lot easier to fix something on the front end than like what Carrie was saying. It's December 31st and you're trying to run down some things. So, because they're going to tell you what you need to do. It's going to cost you a little bit of money up front, but I tell people it's worth the extra money to spend up front, because it's going to probably end up saving you money on the back end, because it's going to keep you from having legal fees to have to defend against something you've done, or it's going to save you the money by you being able to be in the office working instead of out of the office not earning money, because you're having to run down all of the things you didn't do at the beginning. Set goals. I was an athlete growing up, and I can say that even now as a business owner, I do the same thing as I did when I was an athlete. I have short-term goals, I have long-term goals. July 1 was when I started my own practice. I have goals that I have set for what I want my firm to have accomplished by December 31st. And then what do I want it to look like in a year or 2 years or 5 years? I was a teacher before I went into practicing law, so I was a little late to the game in getting into the legal field. So I knew I had to change my long-term goals of what do I want my portfolio to look like when I'm 50, when I'm 60, when I'm 70. How long do I want to practice? And you need to have those goals in place and know what you want to accomplish, because that's then going to determine what you're going to have to do for your business. So be smart, be realistic. Have a plan in place. Again, as I was saying at the beginning, you're going to have probably some of your own financial insertion into a business when you start it up. And I can tell you that you don't want to dump all of your savings into a business up front, because if you decide to go get financing and they're going to look at this and they may say that's not good, they may not look at it as favorably if you don't have anything in your reserve. You've dumped all of this money into your business and now your business is in debt, you have no money left, and you still got all of these things you need to accomplish. So then that's where you have to decide, are you going to utilize line of credits? Are you going to have a loan? Apply for those grants or small business grants that you can get, but you need to plan for time, because they are not going to necessarily turn over and you're going to have the money maybe when you expect. So you need to plan for that rainy day, because you may either not get the loan or you may not get it as soon as you think. Because I will tell you, when you go to apply for those loans, it is a lot slower for a business loan than it is if it's a personal loan. Personal loan, generally you're looking at maybe a couple weeks. Business loan, it's going to take a lot longer than that. If you're going to be hiring employees, I tell them don't rush it. You need to have a clear idea of what you want in an employee, what the job responsibilities that you're going to want them to perform. So you need to be very specific in what you're looking for. Don't hire somebody just to have somebody in that seat, because it's going to end up being worse for you on the long end, because you're either going to have an employee who's underqualified, doesn't know what they're doing, and you have to either clean up their mess, or you may have to let them go, or maybe they're not working at all. So, make sure that you know what you're looking for in your employees before you just make a quick hire. And then protect yourself and protect your business. And this is where we really get into the legal side of things. First thing I tell people is when they come into me and I say, do not, under any circumstances, agree to things in a verbal agreement. My dad is a businessman, and if you shake my dad's hand and he says, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, you can be guaranteed that before that deadline, he's going to have X, Y, and Z done. That's the way he is, that's the way he was raised, and that's how he raised me. Not everybody works that way. So I tell people, do not bind yourself into something on a handshake, because unfortunately, today's time, handshake agreements aren't what they used to be. So I always say everything in writing. You want everything in writing, and you want every party to sign that's going to be invested into it. It protects you, and it also protects the other side. So I always say don't go in formal agreements. Have any agreement you enter into needs to always be in writing. You're going to need to decide if you want to incorporate, or if you're going to be an LLC, or if you're going to be a partnership. And your liability exposure is different depending on the way you decide to start your business. I usually will recommend you either incorporate or you use an LLC. You get that corporate shield, which can protect your personal assets up to a certain point, as long as you're not doing anything that a normal person would say you shouldn't do that. When you're looking for agreements, when you're looking for those documents, an employee contract or a non-compete, please, please, please do not use LegalZoom. It is the worst thing out there. Or don't go, I went on to the Google and I Googled one, and it is there because they're not specifically tailored to what you need. Again, that's where a little money up front, pay that accountant, pay that attorney, pay that whoever, meet with them, because if I'm drafting a non-compete for you, it is tailored specifically for what you need. And believe it or not, you know, they're not all created the same. Different business ventures, depending on the area that you're in, is different in terms of what you can limit an employee to do once they leave. So it would behoove you to go speak with someone who actually knows what they're doing, and do not go to LegalZoom. You will need to be very upfront and honest. Past business experiences, past business ventures, good or bad, I'm going to ask you to disclose that to me, because that could change how we may have to formulate or handle something there. Detailed written agreements, employee matters. I don't handle a lot of employee matters. I can just tell you that you're going to want an employee handbook, you're going to want an operating procedure, so that way you've got that there. And then finally, be patient and be flexible. Rome wasn't built in a day. So that's, I think, all I have.
Question time. We have any questions for our panel up here today? Mr. Short.
I have one question. It's probably for Agnes. I think what may have been carried about the side. Just because of employees in the contract, just because a business owner wants to call a person an independent contractor, doesn't make them an independent contractor. I think you can point that out. So we go back to workers' comp. What are the legal requirements concerning workers' comp when a person has employees? Are they required by law to purchase that insurance?
Workers' comp?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, even if you have part-time. Even if you have a part-time employee, you are required to purchase workers' comp. And of course, you want to protect that employee too by purchasing the policy.
If you have one employee.
Even if you have one employee, yes.
What about the part about the designation of employee as opposed to independent contractor? In a lot of small businesses, I'm sure you've heard that people will designate an employee as an independent contractor to avoid the legal ramifications of having an employee. There's still, the workers' comp policy would still apply to them, but not.
It would, yes.
Any other questions? Real fast, my CPA made an impression on me early on about, and you guys did refer to it, piercing the corporate shield. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is, yes, piercing the corporate veil. So what this is about, and people don't understand their business entity. If I ask them, what are you taxed as? And they'll say, well, I'm an LLC. Well, are you an LLC? You may be, yes, but you may not be taxed as an LLC. An LLC is not a tax entity. The IRS disregards that. You may be an LLC taxed as an S corporation. You may be an LLC taxed as a partnership. Or you may be a partnership, an S corporation, or a C corporation. Especially when we're dealing with individuals that are sole proprietors, partnerships, LLCs, and S corporations, it's very easy to see a small business owner entangle their personal and business. So if you say, hey, I'm going to Kroger tonight, and I've got my business card, and I'm buying Kroger groceries for us when we go home and make dinner, and that's your business card, would you necessarily do that for an employee, right? Would you give that card to an employee and give them free rein to make those purchases? They're not business purchases. But you're doing it at a personal level because you view that as your money. Well, at that point, you're piercing that veil of being a separate entity. That LLC, that S corporation, that partnership is a separate entity from you as an individual. And so you want to treat it as a separate entity. You would not allow anybody in your business to just make a personal purchase. So that's whenever you...
What do you risk? What do you risk when you do that?
So especially in an S corporation situation, there's tax benefits of saying so much of your income is a distribution versus wage income, which saves in Social Security and Medicare. And so what we've seen in the past is when that veil of being separate is not maintained. Okay, so if you don't respect that designation, why would the courts? Why would the IRS? Okay, so at that point, what has happened is they say, okay, all this money that you've said has been a distribution to you as an investor, which you've saved taxes on, that really is your self-employment income. And now you owe self-employment taxes on all those distributions that you've not paid your employment taxes on. So that's one example. The legality also, now I'm not an attorney, but what I see is that we live in a sue-happy world.
Yeah.
So if we're setting up an LLC to protect us, to protect our personal assets from being affected from a legal lawsuit, keep that entity separate from yourself so that would be respected in a court of law. Am I right? Right. So, but in my philosophy, when we have all, because for example, I have an individual that has a lot of residential real estate, and they're setting up 5 different LLCs, so many houses in each LLC, so that if something happens in one, it won't affect the assets in all the other. From a non-attorney, what I would say is that's important to have protection, but also know that if you can be tapped into a lawsuit, you're going to be tapped into a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Is that?
The short answer is yes. You know, I don't need to explain the acronym, but CYA, okay? Because here's the thing. If I go out in the parking lot and I'm here in a business capacity, right? If I go out in the parking lot and I hit Carrie, she could sue me. I mean, you can get sued for anything, whether you did anything or not. People are sue happy these days. But Carrie would sue me personally because I did something personally to her. But when we're looking at that corporate shield, what you have to think of is that there is this wall that goes up in front of you as the business owner. And essentially, the easy answer is, I'm always like, call me first, but the easy answer is, if you do something, a business decision, or you invest in something, and it's the reasonable person decision, meaning, you know, if you were to talk to John Smith down the road, and he's like, you know, yeah, I think that's great, I think, yeah, then you're probably okay. But by the same token, if somebody says, hey, I've got this great investment, have you ever heard of a company called Enron? And you say, hey, I'm all in. Well, that's not a reasonable decision. So if you invest your business assets, or you invest, or you do something, and a reasonable person would say, you're crazy, then what's happened is you lose that corporate shield. Meaning then, if I took, let's say I have an employee and I take their 401k money, or I take their, you know, my taxes, whatever. I take something from an employee, or I take something from shareholders. I take something and I make a bad business decision that a reasonable person wouldn't make. Then what happens is that shield goes down, and everyone that's been harmed essentially has a claim that they can file a lawsuit now, not only against my company, but against me personally. And that's where your personal assets can become as a liability. They can be lost. As long as I make a decision that is reasonable and it's not crazy out in left field, and I was acting as a reasonable person would have, and you can justify and show that, then that corporate shield is going to limit your personal liability. So if somebody comes and sues my law firm, then all of the only thing they can actually recapture from is going to be the assets of the law firm. My personal assets are protected. And that's where you either want to incorporate or you want an LLC, because you at least get that corporate shield. If you're a general partnership, you don't have that. You don't have that protective shield as a general partnership. And I will tell you, an LLC, if you are a single member LLC, your pass-through taxation looks different than if you are a multi-member LLC, because that's when you get back to the tax stuff, because you have to label how that tax is going to pass through.
Yeah, so 2 things on that. An LLC, taxed as an S corporation, has different corporate legal responsibilities than just an S corporation. So that's why it's important to know, just like Stephanie was saying, a general partnership is different, has different legal issues than an LLC taxed as a partnership. Another mention on the multi-member LLC. In a lot of areas of law, we're allowed to take a husband and wife and just count it as one person. But when it comes to the world of LLC, if you tag in your spouse, we're in a multi-member LLC situation, and now we have a partnership tax return that we've got to deal with. So in my example of the individual with the real estate, they had 20 properties, and they wanted to put husband and wife and on all of these, and that really complicates things, and people don't realize it. And not all accountants know that that's the technical black and white law either. So sometimes we'll see technically multi-member LLC between husband and wife come in, and it's not properly set up.
Yes.
We're excited.
Yes.
It was just something Carrie just mentioned, husband and wife. If you have a partnership, LLC, corporation, whatever, I do a lot of estate planning, and I will tell you, you need to have something in place as to what happens with that LLC, with that corporation, whatever you're going to do. You need to have something in place, because that's when you have to get into the courts through a probate
Let's give these three a round of applause. Thank you very much. It's all yours.
Wow, that's all I can say. Barry, I think you outdid yourself this time. What a panel today. Let's one more round of applause for these ladies. We have a token for each of you ladies that we'll do a photo op afterwards, but it's a photo of a mural that was on a building that is now Aldi's. It was on the building before they tore that building down and reconstructed Aldi's. So we'll give each of you ladies one of these plaques today, so we'll do the photo op after we're done in light of the fact that we're running tight on time. Okay, you know, Agnes made a comment about people go into business because they have a passion for what they do. And I truly believe that's why we have a lot of small businesses, because people have a passion. But what these ladies have just demonstrated is how important it is to protect ourselves as we're doing that passion that we so desire. So thank you all so much for what you shared with us today. We're going to hurry through the rest of the meeting. I think we're all going to want to get back to work. There is a community leadership meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m. It's going to be at TW's office, I believe. We're looking to try to get together community leaders from all the different organizations, the Optimist Club, Lions Club, Rotary, RSBA, DAV, American Legion, and so forth. So if you're interested in participating, that's going to be at TW's office on Thursday evening at 6 o'clock. And then on Friday, we have a ribbon cutting at Jump Around Party Place, it's November the 15th at noon. It's located at 2106 South Wilson Road. They are booking private parties as well, so please come out and join us for the ribbon cutting on Friday. As always, please watch your emails for ribbon cuttings, anniversary celebrations, or any other points of interest on our RSBA website. And if you are not currently a member and would like to be a member, please reach out to Angela Reardon with Beautifully Bare. She is now coordinating our new members and also ribbon cuttings and anniversary celebrations. Let's give a round of applause to Barry Saylor and the Sandwich Shack for Subway's lunch today. Thank you so much. And at this time of the hour, I'm going to ask that you pull out your coupons or your tickets. We have a door prize. And that door prize, thanks to Angela Reardon for getting this for us, is Plush Nail and Beauty Bar. It's a $25 gift certificate to Plush Nail and Beauty Bar. So guys, if you're not inclined to use it, it's always a good gifting opportunity. So if you have your tickets ready, the number is 493940. All right. And since we are out of time, I'm going to take just a few seconds if anybody has anything that they want to mention before we leave here today. Any takers on that? No? Okay, I did want to mention something that John brought to me right at the before we started our meeting. CTAC is one of our newest members, and their brochure includes member Radcliff Small Business Alliance. So you might want to consider when you're doing brochures to add Radcliff Small Business Alliance logo to your brochures. Thank you all so much and have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And we will be having a luncheon in December. It's December the 10th. So come join us for our Christmas luncheon. Thank you all so much.